as we gently exhale and move forward. And this will help access the hip joints. If you can't go all the way forward, you can bend your elbows and just gently pivot at the hips, bringing your forehead down, and then reach, if possible, the arms straight down. And this helps you relax the hip joints and relax the back. When we're looking at opening the hip joints, there are three factors that are always at play. First is the hip joint itself. Second is the lower back. And third is your pelvic floor. If the pelvic floor is weak, the hip joints will often be stiff. If you don't have access to the hip joints, they'll often be stiff. And if your lower back is tight or seized or in a spasm, the hip joints won't bend. Roll your spine gently up. That's a nice little opening. Now we'll take it to the side, pivoting at the hip joint, pivoting at the waist. Inhale, and exhale, just gently lean over. Bend at your waist so you're leaning laterally. Take the right elbow on the ground and reach over the top of the head. Gaze at the left fingers and relax as much as possible, breathing into the hip joints and sucking in the low belly. This will help releasing your lower back and giving you access into the right hip joint. If it's possible for you, you can straighten out your right arm, but try not to lift your left hip too much. After you feel a nice tug and pull on the lower back and the side of the body, roll it forward, and let's come all the way back up to that neutral position. Remember, we're just getting started. The mind is calm, non-judgmental, and equanimous. It's the meditative mind that's the key to opening the body. So work on that more than any particular goal in terms of your postures. Leaning to the left side, bend laterally, taking the left elbow on the ground, roll the right shoulder around, gazing at the right fingers. Let your head relax and soften as it reaches an extension and an alignment of the body. And if you're comfortable here, you can go a little deeper by straightening that arm out to the side, but try not to lift your right hip too much. You should feel a nice tug on the lateral side of the right torso. We can feel that right around the iliac crest or the top of the pelvis. Freeing up the pelvis again gives you access to the hip joint. And then let's roll that all the way forward. Good. So we should feel ourselves a little alive in a calm and meditative flow. And in order to really help ourselves be calm, long holds of the postures that we're doing today will help you access the surrender. You'll be surrendering to yourself and surrendering to gravity. And one thing that's amazing is that you don't need to work. We work so hard in our lives, aiming towards striving and achieving certain goals. Right now, what your job is to do is to let go of all attachment to any particular outcome. Let go of the goal, surrender and be. And in that state, you'll find freedom. And in freedom, your body will open. So gently move over to the side. And we're going to start off by bringing the legs into a diamond position. You don't want the feet too close in, and you don't want the feet too far out. We want a gentle bend in the knees. And you'll notice that when the knees point out to the side, you'll have an external rotation right at the hip joint. So what we're doing is accessing the ball and socket of the hip joint, which is in the interior space of the pelvis. And then we're externally rotating both hip joints. If your knees are very high off of the ground, you could take a block and place it underneath your shin and your thigh to give it a little bit extra support. You don't want pressure on the outside of the knee, so that block might really be your friend. If your knees reach comfortably to the ground, then you don't need the block. If you find the block uncomfortable, you can use a bolster, all right? Now, in order to pivot forward, we'll need to find our pubic bone. So I want you to find your pubic bone with your fingers. Inhale, straightening the spine. Then exhale, pivot backwards, moving the pubic bone back, lifting the sitting bones off the ground. If possible, place your elbows on top of the shins and pause here. Feel the movement and the twist into the hip joints, pivoting right in the hip joints. Now, if you can't go any further, you can grab that block, place it on top of your feet, and then gently rest your head right on top of the block. If, however, it's possible for you to go further, then, pivoting again at the hip joints, walk your hands forward and forward and forward and forward until your face reaches down towards your feet. Now, the key here is not to push, so there's no tension in my arms at all, no tension in my back. If you find yourself tensing or pulling, it defeats the whole purpose of this. Be calm and let yourself enter a meditative flow. Inhale, and if you can even exhale, rest your forehead right in the soles of the feet. Surrender yourself into gravity, into the work of the posture here. Don't fight with yourself, don't fight with anything. Just be. Let it all go. Ask yourself, what are you holding on to?
What can you let go of? What is necessary? Surrender to yourself, to the posture, to your breath, and into gravity. This is a great tool to do at the end of the day if you're looking for relaxation, or if your hip joints are very stiff. It might be a great way to bring energy and circulation into the body first thing in the morning. If you do this first thing in the morning, you'll feel the hips much tighter, but the mind will be much more clear. If you do this movement later in the day, you'll notice the mind is more jumpy, but perhaps the body feels a bit more open. Don't tense. Don't fight yourself. Don't block yourself. Just be with yourself in the simplicity of the posture. Surrendering yourself into gravity. Surrendering your body to the floor underneath you. Try not to move or wiggle so much. A steady body is a calm mind, so let your body and your mind be unified. If possible, let your mind again be in a non-judgmental equanimous state that rests with the pace of inhalation, the pace of exhalation. Practice accepting whatever sensations arise in your body. So if there's tightness in the hip, let there be tightness in the hip. If there's openness in the hip, let there be openness in the hip. Find those 3 points from your hip joints, through your pelvis, through your lower back. And after maybe at least 30 to 50 breaths in this posture,
Gently raise your head. Come onto your elbows. You'll notice that there's a different sensation in the light after your eyes have been closed. Remain calm and meditative. Come onto the elbows again. Find the pelvic floor and inhale, roll your spine gently up.